Against the backdrop of climate change, many filmmakers have pondered, if our world is dying, what do we do? In Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, Professor John Brand gives us an answer.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
These words, from a poem by Dylan Thomas, act as a motif throughout the film. When faced with the possibility of extinction, humans need to maintain hope and keep fighting back, rather than resigning themselves to their fate. But Nolan's message does not end there. The various choices made by characters throughout Interstellar prove that how we rage against the dying of the light is important. Is betrayal necessary to ensure survival? Interstellar tells the story of Coop, a widowed NASA pilot turned farmer who faces the difficult choice of leaving his young children behind to complete a mission that could save humanity from a global blight and increasingly hostile weather conditions. While Professor Brand stays on Earth to solve a gravity equation that could enable humanity to escape the dying Earth and successfully live on space stations, Plan A, Coop and his team board the Endurance to look for outer planets that could sustain human life for a new colony of frozen embryos on board, Plan B. While all of the characters have the same goal, human survival, they make very different ethical choices to achieve this aim. Through these characters, Nolan presents a hierarchy of survival instincts, from the most despicable to the most altruistic, and challenges the audience to decide how we ourselves should rage against the dying of the light. Before ranking characters' survival drives, it's important to touch on Coop's father-in-law, Donald, a cautionary tale of what happens when we instead go gentle into that good night. When Coop laments that the school system is deliberately erasing decades of space travel from the curriculum, Donald scoffs at the hubris of his generation trying to invent solutions and remarks that this world isn't so bad. But it is bad, and we learn that it's only getting worse for his grandchildren Murph and Tom, who will inherit a dying planet if people with Donald's attitude remain in charge. Donald has resigned himself to the state of the world and being caretakers, rather than encouraging his son-in-law to strive for answers and solutions. This is not survival, but stasis, and exactly what Nolan wants us to resist. So if we are clearly supposed to keep striving, rather than falling into resignation like Donald, is all raging against the dying of the light equally virtuous? Is the key to human survival a cutthroat Darwinian urge to persist at all costs, even if that means betraying others? Christopher Nolan doesn't think so, and let me show you why. Of all the characters striving to survive, we are meant to have the least empathy for Dr. Mann because he is the most selfish and deceitful. A member of an earlier NASA crew tasked with searching for inhabitable worlds, Dr. Mann landed on a planet that is ultimately inhospitable for human life and therefore not the right fit for Plan B. But rather than accept his disappointing fate of living his last days on his planet, Dr. Mann sends fake data back to the Endurance, pretending that he has found a planet that can support life in an attempt to get rescued. This lie is only the beginning of the lengths Dr. Mann is willing to go to ensure his own personal survival, as he lures Coop and his team to his planet to steal their ship, and is content to kill off Romilly and leave the others to die. After damaging Coop's helmet, he has the audacity to repeat back the Gentle Night poem, acting as if his lies and betrayal of fellow astronauts who trusted him is the right way to rage against the dying of the light. But in the end, Dr. Mann gets what was coming to him. When attempting to steal the Endurance, Mann ignores Coop and Dr. Amelia's warnings and fails to dock correctly, leading him to die instantly when the airlock depressurizes. His own hubris leads to his demise. Nolan presents Dr. Mann as a cautionary tale for what happens when a person's survival drive becomes too selfish and too comfortable with betrayal. As we, the audience, rage against the dying of the light, we should never stoop to Dr. Mann's level. Professor Brand's survival drive is not as egregious as Dr. Mann's, but he does resort to betrayal that irreparably affects Coop's family. When pitching the Endurance mission to Coop, he assures Coop that he will work out the gravity equation to save humans on Earth, and that Coop is merely paving the way for a backup colony. Professor Brand leads Coop to believe that he'll be able to come back to Earth and see his children again, so that Coop will undertake the mission. But this is a lie. Professor Brand knows that the gravity equation is unsolvable without quantum data from inside a black hole, so any hope of transporting the living population of Earth to space is doomed. But Professor Brand conceals this reality until he's on his deathbed, believing that Coop will only join the Endurance mission and bring the embryos to an inhabitable planet if he is motivated by hope for his children's future. After all, if Coop knew that his family was doomed, he would want to spend every last moment with them on Earth rather than living out his life far away from them in space undertaking Plan B. This massive betrayal upends Coop's family, as Murph believes her father abandoned them and lied about being able to come back. And Coop must live with the devastating realization that the hope he instilled in himself and in his children is not possible. However, Professor Brand's betrayal is more virtuous than Dr. Mann's because of his desire to provide for the future of humankind. The frozen embryos on board the Endurance who will one day continue the human species. Brand is, therefore, betraying Coop and Murph, but for the greater good, rather than for purely selfish reasons. Brand's goal is altruistic, but Christopher Nolan still wants us to question his methods of raging against the dying of the light when they involve breaking up families. Even Murph, the film's moral compass, must resort to a little betrayal to ensure her family's survival. As the Dust Bowl on Earth worsens, adult Murph watches her brother Tom lose his first son to a lung condition, yet refuse to leave behind the family farm to live underground for the sake of his surviving son. With Tom ignoring Murph's pleas and appeals to reason, she resorts to burning the fields to force them out. This is a betrayal, but seems to be a necessary one. While it's painful for Murph to set fire to the farm her father and brother have poured their heart into, she only resorts to arson to ensure her brother's family survives by evacuating somewhere safer. Nolan also makes Murph's betrayal more noble than either Dr. Mann's or Professor Brand's, because Murph never outright lies to her brother throughout the incident. But there is a way to survive without any betrayal at all, and it involves some of the most mysterious, science fiction-heavy aspects of the film. From the beginning of the film, young Murph has referred to a ghost in her childhood home that moves books and knickknacks on her bedroom shelves. In the last half hour of Interstellar, once Coop enters the black hole, the identity of this ghost becomes clear. It's actually present-day Space Coop himself, communicating back to Earth. How is this possible? Future superhumans who survived the Blight figured out how to exist in 5 dimensions and constructed the Tesseract within the black hole, enabling Coop to perceive time as a physical dimension and communicate the missing quantum data to help Murph complete the gravity equation through Morse code and items in her bedroom. These are the future humans that Dr. Amelia says have been looking out for us. They built the Tesseract as a way of ensuring that our heroes can secure their future existence. They've been guiding Coop every step of the way, from giving him the ability to communicate the coordinates of the hidden NASA facility to creating wormholes. And, crucially, the superhumans ensure humanity's survival by channeling Coop's love for his daughter, no betrayal necessary. These future humans know the secret to their survival is bringing Coop and Murph together, not tearing them apart. By ending the film with the Tesseract sequence, Christopher Nolan positions the superhuman survival drive as the best form, and ultimately the most effective, as the being's deep appreciation of familial love enables Murph to crack the code, transport the humans on Earth to safety through Plan A, and save humanity. Through these different case studies of survival, Nolan makes his vision clear. We, the audience, need to rage against the dying of the light, but with as little betrayal as possible to ensure our continuation as a species. We should never be like Dr. Mann, avoid being deceitful like Professor Brand, only pull a Murph when absolutely necessary, and strive to be like the superhumans who see connectedness and love as the secret to survival. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more film analysis. Until next time.